Welcome everyone to Midwest Tree ID. On this channel, it is my mission to help you learn an abundance of trees that grow right here in the Midwest, and some key features on how to identify them. There's just one thing to clarify before we begin. We're not going to be throwing hatred or ridiculing any of the species that we're going to be talking about. But we do, however, want to encourage thoughtful conversation in the comments about personal experiences and things like that. Please try to remember that everything has value and that we are here to enjoy nature and everything it has to offer. So without anything else, let's jump right in. Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today we're at Kaufman Lake in Champaign, Illinois, and we're talking about Phellodendron amurense. This is the Amur Cork tree, a tree that has been used somewhat moderately in the landscape and has declined because of some of its prolific tendencies. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But cork tree is known for having rather large compound, pinnately compound leaves, and can range from 12, maybe 13 leaflets. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. This one's got 14 leaflets right here on this leaf. And these leaflets are going to be rather ovate. And they're going to be very, very smooth, almost waxy. And very, very subtle if you can see it. There's very, very few serrations on these leaves. And here is what remains of the flowers. Speaking of the flowers, while they're not overly showy flowers, they certainly have a draw for bees, honeybees particularly. If you, that's what I was showing at the very beginning of the video, was bees just flocking to it. Actually, one of the trees that was featured in the bee part of the video was the tree here behind me. I also featured trees from the Japan House and Heritage Park as well. And it was there were so many, it was so abundant, I didn't even use about half of the footage that I had obtained as to how many bees were on these trees. So they can certainly be a favorite for honeybees, particularly honeybees. But the flowers themselves are mainly just kind of yellow-green clusters. And then there are, this species is dioecious, which means there are male and female specimens. And this tree behind me happens to be a male. And we will show you the female at a later date. So right now we'll go ahead and take a look at the bark and the habit of this one. At the end of the video, I will show some pictures of some of the other trees in the area. So the bark on cork tree, this one is a little bit inconsistent to some of the bark on cork tree. And as you can kind of, it's impossible to really see, but if you kind of give them a little bit of a press, they're almost kind of squishy. There's a little bit of a give to the bark, but you can kind of tell the bark kind of has some darker streaks and lighter whitish streaks. That's very consistent on cork trees. Some of them are much more pronounced than this one here. But you can kind of see how some of these furrows and ridges are almost kind of zigzaggy, or they kind of close off and then open up again. Almost zigzaggy is probably the best way to say it. And then cork tree is quite common to have some of these lateral roots that kind of encompass the area a little bit, but nothing super crazy. So Amur cork tree can have quite a range in its shape and size, but for it to have a very broad canopy with a flat top is pretty standard. Although there have been some that I'll show in pictures later that do have a little bit more of a rounded habit to them. And sometimes they can be kind of squatty. The trunks can be kind of squatty with some low branching to them as well. It is frequent. In fact, at Missouri Botanical Gardens, there's one that has some low branches that literally come and touch the ground and then come back up. They're very prone to doing that. There's some at the Japan House here in Urbana that are really, really close to doing that. So I can kind of feature that when we get to it. So now we're over at Heritage Park here in Champaign, Illinois, and we're going to talk about why the Amur cork tree is on the prolific index and where it falls on my prolific index. It does frequently get the reputation of being invasive in some landscapes, um, and some states have even banned the sale of this tree. Although a lot of times it's, to me, it doesn't seem really very necessary. It seems over exaggerated. But for my prolific index here in Central Illinois, it ranks as a tier 1, which implies that the seed mobility rate is very low, which means the seed doesn't disperse very far. Germination rate is very high, but typically underneath the drip line of the tree itself, of the female tree itself. And so germination is high, mobility is low, establishment is very low, and we'll see some of that here in a little bit. And then vigor is also very low. These trees do not grow very fast at all, maybe 6 to 8 inches a year on some of your more established specimens. Otherwise, they stay, they maybe grow 4 to 5 inches a year. Really not a very fast growing tree. So its ability to invade natural forests is extremely low. That's not to say it's never happened or couldn't ever happen, but that seems quite manageable. So um, we'll take a look at what it's doing over here as far as its self-seeding, because this tree here at Heritage Park is a female and produces seed very heavily. So let's go ahead and take a look at the ground over here and I'll show you what we're seeing. Okay, so we're looking at the ground, and what we're seeing here is a lot of these little guys, these types of things here. These are all cork tree seeds. This is clover right here, but there's tons of cork tree seedlings popping up in the grass over here, and you can kind of see it. They're kind of discolored, probably because they're not establishing. Like I said, they have very low establishment when they self-seed like this. So even though there is an abundance of them, there's a huge concentration of them right here. So this is where they kind of get that reputation for being prolific. But like I said, I've been over here about 4 or 5 times this season, and these have not grown. This is about as the size that they were when I first noticed them in March. So this is what I mean: low vigor, low establishment, but high germination. But look at where we are. We are still in the drip line of the tree. And the moment you step out of the drip line, there's none. No seedlings whatsoever. Just a foot or so past the drip line. Here's a seedling right there. But it's pretty close. Pretty close. So not really what you would call a genuine invasive, the way a lot of people in the industry like to portray it as. It is quite a nice tree, but yeah, you certainly can find some self-seeding here and there. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the Amur Cork Tree today. Thanks for joining me, and we will see you guys next time.